The stagecoach tilted violently as the wheel splintered against a rock, throwing Priscilla Grant hard against the wooden frame before the entire vehicle crashed onto its side in a spray of dust and screaming horses. Priscilla's head spun as she tried to orient herself in the darkness. The other passengers were groaning, some crying out in pain. She could smell blood and fear in the confined space. Her carpetbag had fallen on top of her, and when she pushed it away, her hands came back sticky. The elderly woman who had been sitting across from her was silent and still, her neck bent at an unnatural angle. Priscilla's stomach lurched. "Everyone out, now!" The driver's voice came from outside, panicked and sharp. "They're coming back, they." Priscilla's blood went cold. Before the accident, she had heard gunshots, seen riders circling the coach like wolves around wounded prey. Bandits, the kind of men who left no witnesses. She scrambled toward the door, now facing skyward, her traveling dress tangling around her legs. Strong hands reached down and hauled her up into the fading light of dusk. The driver, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead, barely looked at her before turning to help the remaining passengers. Of the 7 who had boarded in Sacramento that morning, only 4 were still moving. "Run for the rocks," the driver shouted, pointing toward a cluster of boulders about 50 yards from the road. "I cannot hold them off for long." Priscilla did not wait. She gathered her skirts and ran, her button-up boots slipping on the loose stones. Behind her, she heard more gunshots, closer now. A man's scream cut off abruptly. She did not look back. The November wind cut through her thin, traveling coat like knives, and the sun was sinking fast behind the mountains, taking what little warmth remained with it. She reached the rocks and pressed herself into a narrow crevice between 2 large boulders, trying to make herself as small as possible. Her breath came in ragged gasps, and her heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. The temperature was dropping rapidly now that the sun was nearly gone, and she realized with growing horror that she had left her carpetbag behind. Everything she owned in the world had been in that bag. The money her aunt had given her, her extra clothes, the daguerreotype of her parents. More gunshots echoed across the desert. Then silence. A terrible, complete silence. Priscilla waited, shaking now from both fear and cold. Minutes passed like hours. The sky darkened from purple to indigo to black, and the stars emerged in their thousands. She had never seen so many stars in Boston, but she was not in Boston anymore. She was in Nevada territory, in the wild country between Sacramento and Virginia City, and she was alone. She tried to think rationally through her panic. The bandits would search the wreckage, take anything of value, maybe pursue the survivors. Her hiding place felt suddenly inadequate. What if they had seen her run this way? What if they were coming for her right now? The cold was becoming as dangerous as the bandits. Her teeth chattered so violently she had to clench her jaw to stop them. She wrapped her arms around herself, but her coat was meant for autumn in Boston, not a November night in the high desert. She could feel the temperature continuing to drop. Without shelter or a fire, she might not survive until morning. She must have lost track of time because the next thing she knew, she heard hoofbeats approaching. Multiple horses, moving slowly, searching. She pressed herself deeper into the crevice, ignoring the sharp rocks digging into her back. The hoofbeats came closer, stopped. "Check those rocks." A rough voice male with an accent she could not place. Waste of time, they all ran south. "Check them anyway, the boss wants no witnesses, no witnesses." Priscilla's vision swam. She was going to die out here, shot by bandits or frozen in the desert. 20 years old, and her life was going to end in this God-forsaken wilderness, and no one would even know what happened to her. Aunt Margaret would wait for her letter from Virginia City that would never come. Footsteps crunched on gravel, coming closer. She could see lantern light dancing across the rocks. Priscilla closed her eyes and prayed, something she had not done since her parents died of cholera 3 years ago. If there was a God, now would be an excellent time for a miracle. "Nothing here but lizards," the man called out after what felt like an eternity. "Can we go? It is colder than a witch's heart out here." "Fine, let us catch up with the others." The hoofbeats retreated. Priscilla waited until she could no longer hear them before she allowed herself to breathe normally. But her relief was short-lived. The cold was intensifying. Her fingers were going numb despite being tucked under her arms. Her feet felt like blocks of ice in her thin boots. She knew she could not stay here, but she also knew that moving in the dark across unfamiliar terrain was dangerous. She could fall into a ravine, encounter a snake, or simply get more lost than she already was. She lasted another hour before the cold forced her to move. She could not feel her toes anymore, and her shaking had become violent, uncontrollable tremors that jarred her entire body. If she stayed here, she would die. At least if she moved, she had a chance. Priscilla climbed out of the crevice, stumbling on numb feet. The starlight provided barely enough illumination to see the ground in front of her. She started walking, heading in what she hoped was north, away from where the bandits had gone. Every step was agony. Her feet screamed in protest, and several times she fell, scraping her hands on the rough desert floor. After what might have been an hour or 3, she honestly could not tell anymore. She saw a faint glow in the distance. A light. Civilization. Hope surged through her, giving her a burst of energy. She changed direction, moving toward the light. As she got closer, she could make out the shapes of buildings. A ranch perhaps, or a mining camp. But exhaustion and cold were taking their toll. Her steps became more unsteady. The ground seemed to tilt beneath her. She was so cold now that she almost could not feel it anymore, which some distant part of her mind recognized as a very bad sign. She was still several hundred yards from the buildings when her legs simply gave out. She collapsed onto the hard ground, unable to get up. The shaking had stopped, which should have been a relief, but instead filled her with a strange sense of dread. She tried to call out, but her voice was barely a whisper. No one would hear her. She was going to die here, so close to safety. Tears froze on her cheeks. Then she heard something. Footsteps, fast and purposeful. A voice calling out, deep and male. She tried to respond, but no sound came out. Strong arms lifted her from the ground as if she weighed nothing at all. She was pulled against a broad chest, wrapped in warmth that hurt. It was so different from the cold. "Good Lord, you are freezing," the voice said, and she felt herself being carried rapidly across the ground. "Hold on. Just hold on." Priscilla tried to see who was carrying her, but her vision was blurry and dark spots danced across her eyes. She was aware of passing through a doorway, of sudden light and warmth, of being lowered onto something soft. Hands, gentle despite their calluses, removed her frozen boots and began rubbing her feet. The pain was excruciating as feeling started to return. "I know it hurts, but I have to get your circulation going," the voice said. "Can you tell me your name?" Priscilla," she managed through chattering teeth that had started up again with a vengeance. "Priscilla Grant." "I am Samuel Osborne," he said. "You are safe now, Miss Grant. I am going to take care of you." As her vision began to clear, she got her first good look at her rescuer. He was young, probably not much older than her own 20 years, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of warm honey in the lamplight. He had a strong jaw shadowed with stubble and the kind of face that would have turned heads even in Boston. But there was more than his appearance that struck her. There was kindness in his eyes, genuine concern etched in the lines around his mouth. "The stagecoach," she said. "Bandits attacked us. His hands paused in their rubbing of her feet. When? Hours ago, I do not know. I have been hiding in the rocks. The memory came flooding back, and with it a sob she could not contain. The others, some of them died, I saw them. Hush now, Samuel said softly. He grabbed a thick blanket from the back of a chair and wrapped it around her shoulders. You survived. That is what matters right now. The rest we will deal with in the morning. But Priscilla could not stop shaking. Now that she was safe, or relatively safe, her body seemed to be making up for all the terror she had suppressed during her flight. Great shuddering tremors racked her frame, and her breath came in short, sharp gasps. Samuel seemed to recognize what was happening. Without hesitation, he sat down beside her on the small bed and pulled her against him, wrapping his arms around her along with the blanket. You are safe in my arms, he said quietly, firmly, as if stating a simple fact. Nothing is going to hurt you here, I promise you that. Something about the certainty in his voice, the solid warmth of his body, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her ear, began to calm her. Gradually, slowly, the shaking subsided. She found herself relaxing against him despite the impropriety of the situation. Back in Boston, this would have caused a scandal that would have ruined her reputation. But this was not Boston. This was the Nevada Territory in the year 1875, and normal rules did not seem to apply. Better? Samuel asked after several minutes had passed. Priscilla nodded against his chest. Now that she was warm and felt safer, exhaustion was crashing over her like a wave. She could barely keep her eyes open. When did you last eat? He asked. She had to think about it. This morning, at the way station. Samuel eased her back onto the bed, making sure the blanket stayed wrapped around her. I will get you some food. You need to eat something, then you need to sleep. While he moved to the small stove in the corner of the cabin, Priscilla took in her surroundings. It was a simple structure, one room with a bed, a table, a couple of chairs, and a stove. The walls were rough wood, but everything was clean and well maintained. A rifle hung near the door, and saddle gear was piled neatly in one corner. Through a small window she could see the outline of a barn and what looked like corrals. You are a rancher? She asked. Trying to be, Samuel said as he ladled what smelled like stew into a bowl. I work for the Copper Ridge Ranch, but I am saving to buy my own place. This is line camp number 3. I am watching the North Range for a few weeks. He brought the bowl to her along with a spoon and a cup of water. It is just beef and beans, but it is hot. Priscilla took the bowl with shaking hands. The first bite was the most delicious thing she had ever tasted, and she had to force herself not to gulp it down too quickly. Samuel sat in one of the chairs watching her, and she found his steady gaze both comforting and somewhat disconcerting. You said you were on the stagecoach to Virginia City, he asked. She nodded, swallowing. I was going to meet my aunt's friend there, Mrs. Hartford. She runs a boarding house and said she could use help. My aunt in Sacramento thought it would be a good opportunity. You came all the way from Sacramento alone. I came from Boston, actually. To Sacramento first, to stay with my aunt for a few months. But she has 6 children of her own and not much money. When this opportunity came up, we both thought it was best. She took another bite of stew. I suppose I will have to send her a telegram, let her know what happened. The nearest telegraph is in Humboldt, about 15 miles south, Samuel said. But you are not going anywhere tomorrow. You need to rest. Make sure you do not have frostbite. Priscilla looked down at her feet, which were finally starting to feel normal again. Thank you. If you had not found me, I would have died out there. I heard the shots earlier, Samuel said. I was checking the perimeter when I saw you collapse. Lucky thing I was paying attention. He paused. Those bandits, did you get a look at them? Not really. It was getting dark, and I was mostly hiding. Probably the Garrett gang. They have been hitting stages along this route for the past few months. The law cannot seem to catch them. A chill ran through Priscilla that had nothing to do with the cold. They said they wanted no witnesses. Samuel's jaw tightened. "You are safe here. I will not let anyone hurt you." The certainty in his voice made her believe him, even though she barely knew him. There was something solid about Samuel Osborne, something that made her feel protected in a way she had not felt since her father died. She finished the stew and handed him back the bowl. "I should let you get back to your work. I have interrupted your evening terribly." "My work right now is making sure you are all right," Samuel said. He stood and added more wood to the stove. "You take the bed. I will make a pallet on the floor." "I cannot take your bed," Priscilla protested. "You can and you will," Samuel said in a tone that brooked no argument. "You have been through an ordeal. You need proper rest." Priscilla was too exhausted to argue further. She lay back on the bed, still wrapped in the blanket. The pillow smelled like soap and sunshine and something distinctly masculine that was not unpleasant. She watched as Samuel pulled some blankets from a trunk and began arranging them on the floor near the stove. "Samuel," she said quietly. He looked up. "Yes, thank you, truly." His face softened. "Get some sleep, Priscilla. Things will look better in the morning." She wanted to believe him, but as she closed her eyes, all she could see was the crumpled body of the elderly woman in the stagecoach, the blood, the fear. She had come west looking for a fresh start, for opportunity, for a life different from the constrained existence she had known in Boston. Instead, she had found violence and death, but she had also found Samuel Osborne. And as she drifted off to sleep, she found herself grateful for that small mercy. Morning came with the sound of the stove door creaking open and the smell of coffee. Priscilla opened her eyes to find pale sunlight streaming through the window. For a moment, she could not remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The attack, the cold, Samuel's arms around her. She sat up carefully. Her body ached in a dozen places and her feet were tender, but she seemed to be intact. Samuel was at the stove, his back to her. He had changed his shirt and looked like he had washed his face. His hair was damp. "Good morning," she said tentatively. He turned, and she was struck again by how handsome he was in the daylight. "Morning, how are you feeling?" "Sore, but alive." "That is what counts." He poured coffee into a tin cup and brought it to her. "I made some flapjacks." "You should eat." As they ate breakfast, Priscilla found herself studying Samuel more closely. He moved with an easy confidence, economical in his gestures. His hands were calloused and strong, the hands of someone who worked hard for a living. But when he handed her the plate of flapjacks, his touch was gentle. "What will I do?" she asked suddenly. "I have no money, no belongings. Everything was in my carpet bag." Samuel sat down across from her. "First, we report the attack to the sheriff in Humboldt. Then we see about getting you to Virginia City to this Mrs. Hartford. I have no way to pay for passage. We will figure something out," Samuel said, "one problem at a time." "Why are you helping me?" The question came out before she could stop it. "You do not know me." Samuel was quiet for a moment. "Out here we help each other. It is how we survive." He met her eyes. "Besides, what kind of man would I be if I left a woman in need?" "Most men would have done exactly that," Priscilla said quietly. "In my experience, at least. Then you have known the wrong men." There was something in his voice, a gentleness mixed with strength, that made Priscilla's heart skip a beat. She looked away, suddenly flustered. After breakfast, Samuel went out to tend to his horse and check on the cattle he was supposed to be watching. Priscilla cleaned up the dishes, grateful to have something to do with her hands. The cabin was sparse but clean, and she noticed small touches that spoke of Samuel's character. A row of books on a shelf near the bed, a carefully mended shirt hanging on a peg, a journal and pencil on the table. When Samuel returned, he found her looking at the books. "You read?" he asked. "Very much. Do you, when I can. Those belong to my mother. She was a teacher back in Ohio before my parents came west." Priscilla caught the past tense. "She died 2 years ago, fever." "My father followed her 6 months later. I think he died of a broken heart as much as anything." Samuel pulled off his hat and ran a hand through his hair. "They had a small ranch near Carson City. I sold it after father passed and came here to work for Copper Ridge to learn more about ranching before I try to start my own place." "I am sorry about your parents," Priscilla said softly. "I lost mine 3 years ago. Cholera epidemic in Boston. I was 17. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Priscilla felt a connection form between them. They were both orphans, both trying to find their way in the world, both alone. "We should head to Humboldt," Samuel said, breaking the moment. "Can you ride?" "I have ridden before, but it has been a while." "We will take it slow. You can ride double with me." The thought of spending several hours pressed against Samuel's back made Priscilla's cheeks warm, but she did not have much choice. She nodded. Samuel saddled his horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Copper, and helped Priscilla mount behind him. "Hold on tight," he instructed, and she wrapped her arms around his waist. She could feel the warmth of his body through his shirt, the solid muscle of his back. It should have felt awkward, but instead it felt natural, as if they had known each other for years instead of hours. They rode south toward Humboldt, following a rough trail through sagebrush and scattered pines. The Nevada landscape was harsh but beautiful in its own way, all vast sky and distant mountains, so different from Boston's crowded streets and gray buildings. Priscilla found herself understanding why people were drawn west, despite the dangers. "Tell me about yourself," Samuel said as they rode. "What was Boston like?" Priscilla rested her cheek against his back without thinking about it. "Crowded. Noisy. I lived with my parents in a small apartment near the harbor. Father was a clerk, mother took in sewing. We did not have much, but we were happy." She paused, remembering. "After they died, I went to live with mother's sister. She was kind, but she already had so many mouths to feed. I worked where I could, doing laundry mostly, but there was never enough money, never enough opportunity for someone like me." "So you came west?" "Aunt Margaret said there were more opportunities out here for a woman willing to work. She had a friend in Sacramento who helped me get the position with Mrs. Hartford." Priscilla sighed. "I suppose I should have stayed in Sacramento. Then I would not have nearly died in the desert." "Then I would not have met you," Samuel said quietly. Priscilla's breath caught. She could not see his face, but there was something in his tone that made her heart race. She tightened her arms around him slightly, and she felt him lean back into her embrace. They rode in comfortable silence for a while. Priscilla found herself noticing small things about Samuel. The way he sat his horse with easy confidence, the breadth of his shoulders, the fact that he hummed softly under his breath, too quiet for her to make out the tune. She had never been this physically close to a man before, not even when courting Thomas Waverly back in Boston. Thomas had been proper to a fault, never even holding her hand without a chaperone present. Then he had broken off their understanding after her parents died, claiming he could not afford to support a penniless wife. Samuel was nothing like Thomas. There was nothing pretentious about him, nothing calculated. He was genuine in a way that both refreshed and frightened her. "What made you want to be a rancher?" she asked. "My father always said that owning land was the key to real freedom," Samuel replied. "When you work someone else's land, you are dependent on their whims, their decisions. But when you own your own place, you are your own man." He paused. "I have about half what I need saved up. Another year or 2 of working for Copper Ridge, and I should have enough to buy a small spread. Nothing fancy, but enough to run a decent herd." That sounds lonely, Priscilla said. Out there by yourself. I would not always be by myself, Samuel said. Eventually I would want to marry, raise a family, build something that lasts. The conversation fell quiet after that, but Priscilla's mind was racing. Samuel wanted to marry, wanted a family. What kind of woman would he choose? Someone practical and strong, she imagined. Someone who could handle the hard life of a ranch wife. Someone nothing like her, with her city ways and complete lack of useful frontier skills. They reached Humboldt in the early afternoon. It was a small mining town, just a collection of rough buildings clustered around the main street. The sheriff's office was easy to find, marked by a weathered sign. Samuel helped Priscilla down from the horse, his hands strong on her waist, and for a moment they stood close together, his hands still on her, her hands on his shoulders. "Ready?" he asked softly. She nodded, and reluctantly he let her go. Sheriff Dan Cartwright was a grizzled man in his 50s with sharp gray eyes that missed nothing. He listened to Priscilla's account of the stagecoach attack with a grim expression, occasionally jotting notes. "That is the third stage they have hit this month," he said when she finished. "Garrett and his boys are getting bolder. The territorial marshal has a manhunt organized, but these canyons offer too many places to hide." "What about the other passengers?" Priscilla asked. "Do you know if any of them survived?" Cartwright shook his head. "I will send some men out to check the site. If anyone made it, we will find them." He did not sound hopeful. "What should Miss Grant do now?" Samuel asked. "She lost everything in the attack." Cartwright studied Priscilla. "You have people in Virginia City, Mrs. Martha Hartford. She runs a boarding house. She was expecting me to work for her." "I know Martha. Good woman." Cartwright leaned back in his chair. "The stage to Virginia City runs twice a week. Next one is day after tomorrow. I can wire Martha, let her know what happened. As for passage, the stage company might cover it given the circumstances." "I will pay her fare," Samuel said before Priscilla could respond, "and for a room here until the stage leaves if necessary." "Samuel, no," Priscilla protested. "You have already done so much." "It is settled," Samuel said with that same tone he had used the night before, the one that did not allow for argument. Cartwright watched this exchange with interest. "There is a decent boarding house 2 doors down. Mrs. Chen runs it. Tell her I sent you." They thanked the sheriff and left. On the wooden sidewalk outside, Priscilla turned to Samuel. "I cannot let you pay for everything. It is too much." "It is the right thing to do," Samuel said. "Besides, you will pay me back someday when you are settled and working. Consider it a loan if that makes you feel better." "It does, actually," Priscilla admitted. "I will pay you back, every cent." They walked to Mrs. Chen's boarding house, a neat building with whitewashed walls and actual curtains in the windows. Mrs. Chen herself was a small Chinese woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She took one look at Priscilla's bedraggled state and immediately began fussing. "Poor dear, you look exhausted. Come, come, I have a room. You need a bath, clean clothes. I can lend you a dress until you get your own things." Samuel arranged for 3 nights and paid in advance. Before Mrs. Chen could hustle Priscilla away, he caught her hand. "I need to get back to the line camp, but I will come back tomorrow to check on you. Will you be all right?" His hand was warm around hers, and Priscilla found herself reluctant to let go. "I will be fine. Thank you, Samuel, for everything." He nodded, his honey-colored eyes holding hers for a long moment. Then he released her hand, tipped his hat, and left. Priscilla watched through the window as he mounted Copper and rode away, and she felt an unexpected pang at his departure. Mrs. Chen noticed. "That is a good man," she said sagely. "They are rare out here. You should hold on to him." "We only just met," Priscilla protested, feeling her cheeks heat. "Sometimes that is all it takes," Mrs. Chen said. She led Priscilla upstairs to a small but clean room with a real bed and a washstand. "I will have my daughter bring up hot water for a bath. You rest." Left alone, Priscilla sat on the bed and tried to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. She had survived an attack that killed others. She had nearly frozen to death. She had been rescued by a stranger who was proving to be far more than that. And now she was in a small Nevada mining town, waiting to continue to a destination that suddenly did not seem as appealing as it had. Mrs. Hartford's boarding house in Virginia City had seemed like a good opportunity when she was in Sacramento. A steady job, room and board, a chance to save money. But now that meant leaving Samuel, and the thought made her chest tighten in a way she did not fully understand. "You barely know him," she told herself firmly. "You cannot make life decisions based on a man you met yesterday," but he had held her while she shook with fear and cold. He had looked at her with such kindness, such genuine concern. He had not hesitated to help her, to spend his own money to ensure she was safe and cared for. In her limited experience with men, that kind of selflessness was rare. The bath helped. Mrs. Chen's daughter, May, brought up bucket after bucket of hot water until the small tub was full. Priscilla sank into it gratefully, washing away the dust and fear of the past day. May also brought a dress, a simple calico in blue that was a little too short but otherwise fit well enough. "Mama says you come down for dinner when you are ready," May said shyly. She was about 16, with long black hair in a braid down her back. "We have stew." Dinner was served family style in the boarding house dining room. Besides Priscilla, there were 3 minors, a traveling salesman, and an older couple heading to California. Mrs. Chen's cooking was excellent, hearty, and flavorful. The other boarders were curious about Priscilla, and she found herself recounting the stagecoach attack again. The miners were outraged on her behalf. "Garrett gang ought to be strung up," one of them said, a burly man named Jake. "They are making these roads too dangerous for decent folk." "The law will catch them eventually," his companion said. "They always do." After dinner, Priscilla retired to her room exhausted. But sleep did not come easily. She kept seeing the faces of the other passengers, kept hearing the gunshots. And mixed in with the frightening memories were flashes of Samuel's face, the feeling of his arms around her, his voice saying she was safe. The next morning dawned clear and cold. Priscilla dressed in the borrowed dress and joined the others for breakfast. She was just finishing her eggs when there was a knock at the front door. Her heart leapt, hoping it was Samuel, but it was Sheriff Cartwright. "Miss Grant," he said, removing his hat. "I thought you would want to know. We found the stagecoach wreckage, 3 dead, including the driver. 2 passengers are unaccounted for. They might have gotten away or they might have been taken by the gang. We found your carpet bag." He held it out to her. "It had been opened and rifled through, but some of your things are still inside." Priscilla took the bag with shaking hands. "Thank you, Sheriff." After he left, she opened it in her room. Her money was gone, of course. The daguerreotype of her parents was still there, though the glass was cracked. 2 of her dresses remained, along with her other pair of boots and some undergarments. It was not much, but it was more than she had yesterday. She changed into one of her own dresses, grateful to be in clothes that fit properly, and was just pinning up her hair when there was another knock at the door downstairs. This time it was Samuel, and her heart did an actual skip when she saw him through the upstairs window. She hurried down, trying to maintain some semblance of dignity. Samuel stood in the entryway, hat in hand, looking both nervous and pleased to see her. "Good morning," he said. "I hoped you might like to take a walk, get some air." "I would like that very much," Priscilla said. They walked through Humboldt together, and Priscilla was acutely aware of the curious looks from townspeople. News traveled fast in small towns, and she had no doubt that everyone knew about the stagecoach attack by now. They probably also knew that Samuel had rescued her and paid for her room. "People are staring," she murmured. "Let them," Samuel said easily. "They will find something else to talk about by next week." They walked to the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to open country. The November sun was bright if not particularly warm. Samuel pointed out landmarks, telling her about the area. He was easy to talk to, and Priscilla found herself relaxing in his company. "When do you have to go back to the line camp?" she asked. "I have a few more hours," Samuel said. "I wanted to make sure you were settled." He paused. "And I wanted to see you again." Priscilla's breath caught. "Samuel, I know we just met," he said quickly. "I know this is fast, maybe too fast, but I cannot stop thinking about you, Priscilla. From the moment I saw you, something just felt right." "I feel it too," she admitted softly, "but I do not understand it. This does not make sense." "Does it need to make sense?" Samuel stopped walking and turned to face her. "My mother used to say that sometimes you just know. When you meet the right person, you just know. Your mother sounds wise." She was. Samuel reached out and gently took Priscilla's hand. "I know you are supposed to go to Virginia City. I know you have a job waiting there, but I am asking you to consider staying here in Humboldt or come back to Copper Ridge with me. I can help you find work, somewhere to stay." "Why?" Priscilla asked, even though her heart was already answering for her. "Because I do not want to lose you," Samuel said simply. "Because in one day you have come to matter to me in a way I cannot fully explain. Because I think if you get on that stage to Virginia City, I will regret it for the rest of my life." Priscilla's mind raced. Everything he was saying was impractical, impulsive, the opposite of sensible. She had known him for barely a day. This was not how things were supposed to happen. There were supposed to be proper courtships, time to get to know each other, careful consideration of compatibility and prospects. But her parents had been practical, and they were dead. Thomas Waverly had been sensible, and he had abandoned her when she needed him most. Maybe being sensible was overrated. "I need time to think," she said finally. "This is a big decision." "I understand," Samuel said, though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. "The stage leaves tomorrow afternoon. That gives you tonight and most of tomorrow." They walked back to the boarding house in thoughtful silence. At the door, Samuel squeezed her hand. "Whatever you decide, I will respect it, but I hope you will stay." After he left, Priscilla went up to her room and sat on the bed, trying to think clearly. Staying meant giving up the certain employment waiting in Virginia City. It meant taking a risk on a man she barely knew in a place where she knew no one else. It was foolish and reckless. But going to Virginia City meant leaving Samuel. It meant safety and security and a predictable future. It meant never knowing what might have been. Mrs. Chen knocked on her door that evening, bringing tea. "You are troubled," she observed. "Is it that obvious? Only to someone who is paying attention." Mrs. Chen poured tea for both of them. "You are thinking about the young man." Priscilla nodded. "He asked me to stay. And you want to, but you are afraid." "How did you know?" Mrs. Chen smiled. "I was young once too. I know what it is like to have to choose between safety and possibility." She sipped her tea. "I came to this country 20 years ago. My family arranged a marriage for me with a merchant in San Francisco. Safe, secure, comfortable. But on the ship, I met another man, a miner heading to Nevada. He had nothing but dreams and a strong back. My family would have been outraged if I chose him, but I did." She gestured around them. "We built this boarding house together. We had 30 good years before he died. I have never regretted my choice." "But what if it does not work out?" Priscilla asked. "What if I stay and everything falls apart?" "What if you go and spend the rest of your life wondering?" Mrs. Chen countered. "There are no guarantees either way, but I will tell you this. That young man looked at you like you hung the moon, and you looked at him the same way. That kind of connection is rare. Do not throw it away out of fear." After Mrs. Chen left, Priscilla sat with her tea and thought about what she had said. She thought about her parents, who had loved each other deeply until the very end. She thought about Aunt Margaret, married to a man she did not love for security, raising 6 children in near poverty. She thought about Thomas Waverley, who had chosen practicality over loyalty. Then she thought about Samuel's arms around her, keeping her warm and safe. His voice telling her she would be all right. The way he had not hesitated to help her, a complete stranger. The honesty in his eyes when he said he did not want to lose her. By the time she went to bed, she had made her decision. The next morning, Priscilla woke early and dressed carefully. She packed her few belongings back into the carpet bag, including the cracked daguerreotype of her parents. Then she went downstairs and asked Mrs. Chen to help her send a telegram to Mrs. Hartford in Virginia City, explaining that circumstances had changed, and she would not be taking the position after all. She also sent one to Aunt Margaret, letting her know she was safe and staying in Humboldt. Samuel arrived mid-morning looking tired and anxious. "I did not sleep much last night," he admitted. "I kept thinking about you leaving." "I am not leaving," Priscilla said. For a moment he just stared at her, then a smile broke across his face, transforming him. "You are staying." "I am staying," she confirmed. "I do not know if this is the smartest decision I have ever made, but it feels like the right one." Samuel swept her up in his arms, spinning her around right there in Mrs. Chen's entryway. When he set her down, they were both laughing. "You will not regret this," he promised. "I will make sure of it." "So what happens now?" Priscilla asked, suddenly feeling shy. "Now I help you find a job and a place to live," Samuel said. "There is a general store in town that might need help, and I am sure Mrs. Chen would let you stay here until you get settled." He paused. "And I will come to town as often as I can to see you. Once I am done with this stint at the line camp, I will be back at the main ranch. That is only about 5 miles from here. We will have time to get to know each other properly, do this right." "I would like that," Priscilla said. Over the next few weeks, they did exactly that. Priscilla got a job at Henderson's General Store, helping Mrs. Henderson with customers and inventory. It was not glamorous work, but it was honest and paid enough for her to keep her room at Mrs. Chen's with a little left over. Samuel visited whenever he could, usually twice a week. They would walk together, have dinner at the boarding house, talk for hours about everything and nothing. Priscilla learned that Samuel loved to read, especially books about history and exploration, that he had a wry sense of humor that caught her by surprise, that he was unfailingly kind, not just to her but to everyone he encountered. She watched him help Mrs. Chen carry heavy supplies, saw him stop to help a child who had fallen in the street, observed the way he treated everyone with respect regardless of their station. Samuel learned that Priscilla was smarter than most people gave her credit for, that she had opinions on everything from politics to literature and was not afraid to express them, that she had a stubborn streak that both amused and impressed him, that despite everything she had been through, she had not lost her capacity for joy. By Christmas, they were courting in earnest. Samuel gave her a beautiful shawl he had bought from a trader, deep blue wool that brought out her eyes. Priscilla gave him a book of poetry she had scrimped and saved to afford. They attended the town's Christmas social together, dancing in the community hall while a fiddler played. "I love you," Samuel said as they danced. The words came out easy and natural, as if he had been waiting to say them for a long time. Priscilla's heart soared. "I love you too." They were married in March in a simple ceremony at the small church in Humboldt. Mrs. Chen and her daughter helped Priscilla make a dress from white muslin. Sheriff Cartwright walked her down the aisle. The whole town turned out for the wedding, these people who had become her community, her friends. Samuel moved them into a small house on the edge of Humboldt that they rented from one of the local mine owners. It was just 2 rooms and a kitchen, but it was theirs. Priscilla made curtains from calico and planted a small garden. Samuel continued working for Copper Ridge, but now he came home every night to her. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, both of them nervous but eager. Samuel was gentle with her, patient, making sure she felt safe and cherished. Afterward, lying in his arms, Priscilla marveled at how much her life had changed in just a few months. "You ever regret staying?" Samuel asked, as if reading her thoughts. "Never," Priscilla said firmly. "This is exactly where I am supposed to be." The first year of marriage was not without its challenges. Money was tight, and the work was hard. Priscilla continued helping at the general store while also keeping house and tending her garden. Samuel worked long days at the ranch, coming home exhausted but always finding the energy to talk with her, to help with chores, to simply be present. They had their first real fight in July, over Samuel's plan to enter a high-stakes poker game to try to win money for their ranch fund faster. "It is too risky," Priscilla argued. "What if you lose? That is 3 months of savings gone in one night." "I am good at poker," Samuel countered. "I can read people. I could double our money, or you could lose it all." Priscilla's voice rose. "We agreed we would save slowly and steadily." "This is not the plan." "Sometimes you have to take risks," Samuel said, his own frustration showing. "At the rate we are saving, it will take 5 years to buy land. I want to give you a real home, Priscilla. I want us to have our own place." "We have a home," Priscilla said, tears stinging her eyes. "Right here. I do not need a ranch, Samuel. I need you, and I need you to not gamble away everything we have worked for." Samuel stared at her for a long moment, then his expression softened. "You are right. I am sorry. I just feel like I should be able to provide more for you." "You provide everything I need," Priscilla said, going to him and wrapping her arms around his waist. "We will get there together in our own time. We do not need shortcuts." He held her close, his chin resting on top of her head. "I do not deserve you." "Yes, you do," she said firmly. "We deserve each other." In September, Priscilla discovered she was pregnant. The realization came gradually at first: missed monthly courses, fatigue, nausea in the mornings. Mrs. Chen confirmed her suspicions with a knowing smile. "You are glowing," she said. "I would say about 2 months along." Priscilla was both thrilled and terrified. They had talked about having children someday, but someday had suddenly become now. They were still struggling to save money, still living in a rented house. Was this the right time? But when she told Samuel that evening, his reaction erased all her doubts. His face lit up with pure joy. He picked her up carefully and held her like she was made of glass. "A baby," he kept saying. "We are going to have a baby." That night, lying in bed with Samuel's hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach, Priscilla felt a profound sense of contentment. This was not the life she had imagined for herself when she left Boston. It was better. The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the fall and winter. Priscilla continued working at the general store until she started showing, then switched to doing mending and alterations from home. Samuel became even more attentive if that was possible, constantly worried about her health and comfort. In late April of 1876, during a warm spring afternoon, Priscilla went into labor. Mrs. Chen and the town doctor attended her, while Samuel paced outside the bedroom, nearly wearing a hole in the floor. After 8 hours of hard labor, their son was born, red-faced and squalling with impressive lungs. "You have a boy," Mrs. Chen announced, bringing the baby to Samuel. "A healthy, strong boy." Samuel took his son with trembling hands, staring down at the tiny face with such wonder that it brought tears to Priscilla's eyes. "He is perfect," Samuel said. "Absolutely perfect." They named him James Thomas Osborne after both their fathers. Jamie, as they called him, became the center of their world. Samuel would hurry home from the ranch each evening just to hold his son, to watch him sleep, to marvel at his tiny fingers and toes. Priscilla found motherhood both exhausting and exhilarating. She had never known she could love someone so completely, so fiercely. When Jamie was 6 months old, Samuel came home with news. "The Copper Ridge foreman is retiring. The owner offered me the job." Priscilla looked up from nursing the baby. "Samuel, that is wonderful. It comes with a raise." "A substantial one." He sat down next to her, his eyes bright with excitement. "With this salary, we could have enough for our own place within a year, maybe less." "You want the job?" Priscilla asked, knowing that foreman meant more responsibility, longer hours, more pressure. "I want to give you and Jamie the life you deserve," Samuel said. "Our own land, our own home, a legacy to build on." Priscilla reached out and touched his face. "Then take the job. We will make it work." Samuel became foreman in November, and true to his word, the increased income allowed them to save much faster. But it also meant he was gone more often, dealing with ranch business and managing the other hands. Priscilla found herself alone more frequently, caring for Jamie and running the household by herself. She would not say she was lonely exactly. Mrs. Chen visited regularly, and the other women in town were friendly. But she missed Samuel. Missed their long conversations, their quiet evenings together. Missed the easy companionship of their first year of marriage. Samuel noticed too. One evening in January, he came home with a determined look on his face. "I talked to the owner today. Told him I needed 1 day off a week, no exceptions. Sundays are for my family from now on." "What did he say?" He agreed. "Said a good foreman needs balance anyway." Samuel pulled her into his arms. "I have been working too much, Priscilla, I know that, but it is going to get better. I promise." And it did. Having Sundays together made all the difference. They would attend church in the morning, then spend the afternoon as a family. In good weather, they would take Jamie on walks, showing him the hawks circling overhead, the wildflowers blooming in the spring. Samuel taught Priscilla to shoot, saying any ranch wife should know how to handle a gun. She proved surprisingly good at it. By summer, they had saved enough. Samuel found a property for sale about 10 miles north of Humboldt. 160 acres of high desert grazing land with a small stream running through it. There was no house, just a dilapidated line shack that barely deserved the name. But the land was good, and the price was right. They bought it in August of 1877, 2 years after they had met. Samuel gave his notice at Copper Ridge, and they began the enormous task of building their ranch. Samuel and several men from town worked on constructing a proper house, while Priscilla did what she could with a toddler in tow. It was back-breaking work, but it was theirs. The house was finished by October, just a simple 4-room structure but solidly built and weathertight. The day they moved in, Samuel carried Priscilla over the threshold despite her protests that she was too heavy. "You are perfect," he said, kissing her soundly, "and this is our home." Their first winter on the ranch was brutal. The snows came early and heavy, and there were days when Samuel could not get to the livestock, when they were essentially trapped inside. But there was also something magical about those days. The three of them huddled around the stove, playing with Jamie, reading together, simply being a family. Priscilla discovered she was pregnant again in February. This time, she was less anxious and more excited. Jamie was walking now, talking in his own toddler language, becoming a little person with opinions and preferences. The idea of giving him a sibling seemed right. Their daughter was born in October of 1878, during the first snowfall of the season. The birth was easier than Jamie's, and little Elizabeth, Lizzie, came into the world with her eyes wide open, looking around with curiosity. "She has your eyes," Samuel said softly, gazing at his daughter. "She has your stubbornness," Priscilla countered, laughing as the baby refused to sleep despite clearly being tired. With 2 young children and a ranch to run, life became a constant juggling act. Samuel handled the livestock and heavy work. Priscilla managed the house, the garden, the children, and kept the books for the ranch. They worked from sunup to sundown, collapsed into bed exhausted each night, and started all over again the next day. But the ranch was thriving. Samuel's knowledge and hard work were paying off. Their herd grew steadily. They hired a hand to help during calving season. They were not rich by any means, but they were making it work. They were building something. Jamie turned 3, then 4. Lizzie grew from a baby to a walking, talking force of nature. Priscilla taught them both to read, using the books that had belonged to Samuel's mother. Samuel taught Jamie to ride, to handle stock, to respect the land and animals. They were raising children who were strong and capable and loved. In the spring of 1880, Sheriff Cartwright rode out to their ranch with news. "They caught the Garrett gang," he said over coffee in Priscilla's kitchen. "Finally ran them down near the California border. There will be a trial in Virginia City next month." Priscilla felt a chill run through her. She had not thought about that night in the desert for a long time. "Will they need me to testify?" "Might," Cartwright said. "I will let you know." In the end, she did not have to testify. The evidence against the gang was overwhelming, and they were convicted without additional witnesses. All 5 members were hanged in June. When Samuel told her, Priscilla felt a sense of closure she had not known she needed. That chapter of her life was truly over. The years rolled on, each one bringing new challenges and joys. In 1882, they had another son, Samuel Jr., though they called him Sam. In 1884, another daughter, Mary. The ranch expanded. They built a larger barn, added more rooms to the house, bought more land. Jamie grew into a serious, responsible boy who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Lizzie was wild and fearless, constantly getting into trouble. Sam was gentle and thoughtful, happiest with a book. Mary was still too young to show much personality beyond being generally cheerful. Priscilla looked in the mirror one morning in 1885 and realized she was 30 years old. A decade had passed since that terrifying night in the desert when she thought she was going to die. So much had changed. She was no longer a frightened city girl lost in the wilderness. She was a ranch wife, a mother of 4, a woman who could birth a calf, shoot a rattlesnake, and manage a household budget with equal competence. But some things had not changed. Samuel still looked at her the way he had that first day, with warmth and love and admiration. They still talked for hours after the children were in bed, sharing their thoughts and dreams and fears. They still laughed together, worked together, faced each challenge as a team. "You remember the night we met?" Priscilla asked him one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "Every detail," Samuel said. "You were shaking so hard I thought you might never stop. Your lips were blue. I have never been so scared in my life as when I thought I might be too late." "You saved my life," Priscilla said softly. "You saved mine too," Samuel replied. "I was alone before you. Working, saving money, but for what? A ranch is not worth much if you have no one to share it with." "I love you," Priscilla said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I loved you then, even though I barely knew you, and I love you more every day." "I love you too," Samuel said, wrapping his arm around her. "Always have, always will." In 1886, tragedy struck. A fever swept through the territory that summer. Little Sam, always the most delicate of their children, fell ill. Despite everyone's best efforts, he died just after his 4th birthday. The grief nearly destroyed them both. Priscilla could not stop crying, could not function. Samuel retreated into work, pushing himself harder and harder as if physical exhaustion could outrun the pain. For the first time since their fight about the poker game, they found themselves at odds, unable to reach each other through their individual grief. It was Jamie, 10 years old and wise beyond his years, who brought them together. "Papa," he said one night at dinner, "Mama needs you. And you need her. Sam would not want you to be apart like this." The simple truth from their son's mouth broke through the barriers they had erected. That night, they held each other and cried together for the first time since Sam's death. They talked about their son, shared memories, allowed themselves to truly grieve. It did not make the pain go away, but it made it bearable. They planted a tree in Sam's memory, a young oak on a hill overlooking the ranch. Every year on his birthday, they would visit it together as a family. Remembering the gentle boy with the kind heart, time healed as it always does. The acute pain of loss became a dull ache, then a bittersweet memory. They learned to laugh again, to find joy in their remaining children, to appreciate each day. The loss changed them, made them more aware of how precious and fragile life could be. In 1888, they had another child, a son they named Thomas Samuel, honoring both their fathers and the son they had lost. Tommy was a cheerful baby who seemed to bring sunshine back into their home. Jamie turned 13 and took on more responsibility around the ranch. He was so much like his father, serious and hardworking and honorable. Lizzie, 11, was talking about becoming a doctor, much to everyone's surprise. Women doctors were rare but not unheard of, and Samuel and Priscilla encouraged her ambitions. Mary, 6, was the social butterfly of the family, making friends with everyone she met. The ranch continued to prosper. They were not wealthy, but they were comfortable. They had hired 2 permanent hands and added more acres to their holding. The Osborne Ranch was becoming known for quality cattle and fair dealing. Priscilla's hair had started to show threads of silver, and Samuel had lines around his eyes from years of squinting into the sun. But they were healthy and happy, surrounded by children and work they loved. Sometimes Priscilla would think back to that girl on the stagecoach, heading to Virginia City for a job she did not really want, and marveled at how different her life had turned out. In 1890, the territory was abuzz with talk of Nevada becoming a state. It had actually been a state since 1864, Priscilla learned with some embarrassment. She still mixed up her Western history sometimes. But the territory was growing, changing. Railroads connected the major towns now. Telegraph lines spanned the state. The wild frontier was becoming more civilized. Jamie was 15 now, practically a man. He had started courting a girl from town, sweet Lucy Henderson, daughter of the general store owners where Priscilla had worked so many years ago. Samuel and Priscilla approved. Lucy was a good girl from a good family. "You think they will marry?" Priscilla asked Samuel one night. "Eventually," Samuel said, "but not for a few years yet. They are still young." "We were young," Priscilla pointed out. "We were different," Samuel said. "We knew right away." "That we did," Priscilla agreed. In 1892, Lizzie announced that she had been accepted into the nursing program at a hospital in San Francisco. It was not quite medical school, but it was a step in that direction. Priscilla helped her pack, trying not to cry as her firstborn daughter prepared to leave home. "I will write every week," Lizzie promised, "and I will visit during holidays." "I am so proud of you," Priscilla said, embracing her daughter. "You are going to do wonderful things." After Lizzie left, the house seemed quieter. Mary, now 10, tried to fill the void. chattering constantly and following her mother everywhere. Tommy, 4, was becoming more independent, wanting to help his father with the ranch work. Jamie married Lucy in 1893 in a lovely ceremony at the church in Humboldt. They moved into a house on the edge of the ranch property, and Jamie continued working the ranch with his father. Within a year, Priscilla became a grandmother when Lucy gave birth to a daughter they named Priscilla, after her grandmother. Holding her granddaughter for the first time, Priscilla was overwhelmed with emotion. The cycle of life continued. She was no longer just a daughter, a wife, a mother. She was a grandmother now, a matriarch of a growing family. "We did good," Samuel said that night, holding her close. "Look at what we built, not just the ranch, but this family, this legacy." "We did," Priscilla agreed, "starting from nothing in the middle of the desert." "You were shaking from fear and cold," Samuel recalled. "And now look at you, the strongest person I know." "You warmed me up," Priscilla said softly, "and you told me I was safe in your arms. You kept that promise, Samuel. All these years you kept me safe." "Always," Samuel said, kissing her forehead. "That is one promise I will never break." The years continued to pass. Lizzie graduated from nursing school and got a job at a hospital in San Francisco, though she visited regularly. Mary showed an aptitude for teaching and started helping at the small school in Humboldt. Tommy was growing like a weed, all long legs and boundless energy. In 1895, Samuel's health started to decline. He tried to hide it at first, but Priscilla knew him too well. The shortness of breath, the fatigue, the way he winced when he thought no one was looking. Finally, she insisted he see a doctor. The diagnosis was a weak heart, likely damaged by the years of hard physical labor. The doctor recommended that Samuel take it easy, reduce his workload, let others handle the heavy ranch work. Samuel was only 40 years old. The idea of slowing down, of admitting he could not do everything he had always done, was difficult for him. But Priscilla was firm. "We have Jamie now," she pointed out, "and we can hire more help. The ranch will be fine. I need you to be fine too." Reluctantly, Samuel agreed. He scaled back his work, focusing on management rather than physical labor. It was an adjustment, but it allowed him to spend more time with the family, especially his grandchildren. Jamie and Lucy now had 3 children, and they were frequent visitors to the main house. In 1898, the Spanish-American War broke out. Jamie wanted to enlist, but Samuel and Priscilla talked him out of it. He had a wife and children who depended on him, responsibilities to the ranch. Besides, the war would likely be over quickly. They were right. The conflict ended within a few months. Mary announced her engagement to a young man from town, Peter Williams, a teacher at the school where she now worked. They married in 1899 in another lovely ceremony. Priscilla watched her second daughter walk down the aisle and marveled at how quickly time passed. It seemed like just yesterday that Mary was learning to walk, and now she was starting her own family. Tommy, 14, was showing signs of being the most ambitious of their children. He talked constantly about expanding the ranch, trying new breeding techniques, modernizing their operations. Samuel encouraged him, seeing in his youngest son a drive that would take the Osborne Ranch into the 20th century. As the century turned, Samuel and Priscilla found themselves in the strange position of being older members of the community. They were only 45 and 43 respectively, but they had lived in Humboldt and the surrounding area for 25 years. They had seen the town grow from a rough mining camp to a proper town. They had watched children grow up, had attended weddings and funerals, had become part of the fabric of the place. In 1902, tragedy struck again when Samuel suffered a serious heart attack. For several terrifying days, Priscilla thought she was going to lose him. She sat by his bedside, holding his hand, praying to a God she had not always been sure she believed in. Samuel survived, but it was clear that he would never fully recover. He was weak, easily tired, a shadow of the strong cowboy who had saved her life so many years ago. But his mind was sharp, and his spirit was undiminished. He continued to advise on ranch operations, spent time with his grandchildren, read voraciously from his mother's books. "I am not ready to go yet," he told Priscilla one evening. "I want to see Tommy grow up. I want to meet more grandchildren. I want more time with you." "Then fight for it," Priscilla said fiercely. "Fight to stay with us." And he did. Through sheer will and stubbornness, Samuel held on. He learned to manage his condition, to pace himself, to accept his limitations. It was not the life he had envisioned, but it was still a good life. In 1905, Lizzie shocked everyone by announcing that she had married a doctor she worked with in San Francisco. She had not told the family she was courting anyone, preferring to keep her romantic life private. Her husband, Dr. Robert Chen, was the son of Chinese immigrants, which raised some eyebrows in certain circles. But Samuel and Priscilla did not care about that. What mattered was that Lizzie was happy, and Dr. Chen clearly adored her. Tommy married in 1907 at the age of 22 to a rancher's daughter from the next county. Together, they took over the day-to-day running of the ranch, allowing Samuel to fully retire. It was bittersweet for Samuel to hand over the reins, but he was also proud of what his son had accomplished and excited to see where Tommy would take the ranch. By 1910, Samuel and Priscilla had 8 grandchildren, with more on the way. The ranch house, which had once seemed so large, was now bursting at the seams whenever the whole family gathered. They added on another room, then another, until the simple 4-room house had become a sprawling, comfortable home. Samuel's health continued to decline slowly. By 1912, he was mostly confined to the house, unable to do much more than sit on the porch and watch the ranch operations. But he remained involved, offering advice when asked, telling stories to his grandchildren, enjoying each day he had been given. On a warm evening in June of 1912, Samuel and Priscilla sat on the porch watching the sunset, as they had done countless times over the years. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple, and somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed. "You remember that first sunset?" Samuel asked. "The night I found you." "I remember everything about that night," Priscilla said. "I thought I was going to die, and then you came and everything changed." "Best night of my life," Samuel said, "finding you." "Best night of mine, too," Priscilla agreed, "even though I was terrified." "You were shaking so hard," Samuel recalled. "I did not think I would ever get you warm." "But you did," Priscilla said. "You warmed me up and you told me I was safe in your arms, and I believed you." "I meant it," Samuel said. "I would have done anything to keep you safe." "Still would if I could." Priscilla took his hand, noting how thin it had become, how frail, but his grip was still warm, still reassuring. "You have kept me safe for 37 years, Samuel Osborne. You have been everything I could have asked for and more." "I love you," Samuel said. "More than anything in this world." "I love you too," Priscilla replied. "Always have, always will." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun sank below the horizon and the stars began to appear. The same stars that had shone down on them that first terrible, wonderful night. The same stars that had watched them build a life, a family, a legacy that would continue long after they were gone. Samuel passed away peacefully in his sleep 2 weeks later. He was 57 years old. The whole community turned out for his funeral, a testament to the respect and affection he had earned over his lifetime. They buried him on the hill next to the oak tree they had planted for Sam, overlooking the ranch he had built. Priscilla grieved deeply, but she did not fall apart. She had their children, their grandchildren, the ranch to keep her occupied. And she had her memories, precious and perfect, of the man who had saved her life and then made that life worth living. She remained active and involved in the ranch operations, though Tommy was firmly in charge now. She spent time with her grandchildren, teaching them to read and sharing stories of their grandfather. She maintained the house that she and Samuel had built together. In the evenings, she would sit on the porch alone, watching the sunset, and she would feel Samuel's presence beside her. She could almost hear his voice, calm and steady, telling her she was safe. And she was. Even without him physically there, she was safe in the life they had created together, in the family they had raised, in the love that would never die. Years passed. Priscilla watched her grandchildren grow up and have children of their own. She became a great-grandmother several times over. The ranch continued to thrive under Tommy's management. The simple operation that she and Samuel had started with nothing but determination and love had become a substantial enterprise, employing dozens of people and covering thousands of acres. On November 15, 1925, exactly 50 years after that fateful stagecoach attack, Priscilla gathered her entire family together at the ranch. There were more than 40 people present, spanning 4 generations. She was 70 years old now, her hair completely white, her face lined with age. But her eyes were still sharp and her mind was clear. "I want to tell you all a story," she said, and everyone quieted down to listen. 50 years ago today, I thought my life was over. I was on a stagecoach that was attacked by bandits. I ran into the desert to hide, and I nearly froze to death. I was utterly alone, more terrified than I had ever been in my life. The younger grandchildren listened with wide eyes. Even the older ones who had heard this story before were captivated. But then a young cowboy found me, Priscilla continued. He took me to his cabin, he warmed me up, and he told me I was safe in his arms. That cowboy was your grandfather, your great-grandfather, and he was right. I was safe. Not just that night, but for the next 37 years until the day he died. She paused, looking around at all the faces. Jamie, now 50, Lizzie, 47, Mary, 43, Tommy, 40, and all their children and grandchildren. Your grandfather and I built this ranch from nothing. We faced hardships, we experienced tragedy, we worked harder than you can imagine, but we also had so much joy, so much love. And all of you are the proof of that. You are his legacy, and you are mine. Never forget where you came from. Never forget that everything you have started with a terrified girl in the desert and a kind-hearted cowboy who refused to leave her to die. There was not a dry eye in the room when she finished. They spent the rest of the day celebrating, sharing more stories, remembering Samuel, honoring the life that he and Priscilla had built together. Priscilla lived for 5 more years, remaining active and engaged until the very end. She passed away peacefully in her sleep in 1930, at the age of 75. They buried her next to Samuel on the hill, under the oak tree that had grown tall and strong, just like the family they had created. The Osborne Ranch continued for generations, always in the family, always maintaining the values that Samuel and Priscilla had instilled. Hard work, honesty, kindness, loyalty. The story of how it all began, with a stagecoach attack and a rescue in the desert, was passed down through the years, becoming family legend. And on clear November nights, when the stars were bright and the desert wind blew cold, some family members swore they could see 2 figures sitting on the porch of the old house, watching the sunset together. A cowboy and his wife, still together, still in love, safe in each other's arms for all eternity. The ranch house still stands today, preserved by the family as a reminder of their heritage. And on the wall in the main room hangs a cracked daguerreotype in a simple frame. It shows a young couple on their wedding day, their faces serious as was the fashion of the time, but their hands clasped tightly together. Below it is a small plaque that reads, Samuel and Priscilla Osborne, March 15, 1876. He saved her life and she gave meaning to his. Together, they built a legacy. And that legacy continues, generation after generation, all because a cowboy in the Nevada desert heard shots in the distance and went to investigate. All because he found a frightened girl shaking from fear and cold, warmed her up, and promised her she was safe in his arms. All because they both had the courage to take a chance on love, even when it made no logical sense. Their story became more than just a family legend. It became a testament to the power of human connection, to the possibility of finding love in the most unexpected places, to the strength that comes from facing life's challenges together. It became a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from the moments we least expect, from the times we are most vulnerable, from the kindness of strangers who become so much more. Samuel and Priscilla's love story was not perfect. They faced hardship, tragedy, and challenges that would have broken lesser couples, but they faced them together, and that made all the difference. They built a life that mattered, a family that endured, a love that transcended even death. And it all started on a cold November night in 1875, when a cowboy found a woman in the desert, wrapped her in his arms, and promised her safety. A promise he kept for the rest of his life and beyond.